Have you ever walked into a room and felt like your thoughts were too loud for the silence? Not because you spoke, but because you saw something others didn't. You felt it, didn't you? That moment when a single word, a quiet observation shifted the entire energy of a conversation. Not with force, not with arrogance, but with unsettling truth. And suddenly the air thickens, eyes shift, smiles stiffen. You're too much, too aware, too awake. There's no need to ask why you feel out of place in this world, because deep down, you already know. It's not that you don't belong here, it's that this world isn't built for minds like yours. Welcome to Psychopulse, where we don't dilute clarity for comfort, where we explore what others refuse to name. And today we are going to unmask a truth so many intelligent people carry but few ever speak. That the deeper you think, the more you threaten. And the more you threaten, the more alone you become. Arthur Schopenhauer saw this with crystal clarity. A high degree of intellect tends to make a man unsociable, he wrote. Not out of superiority, but because society itself ejects what it cannot understand. It doesn't matter how kind, humble, or polite you are. If your presence disturbs the illusion, you become a danger. And here's the bitter twist. You didn't even ask for this. You didn't choose to question the obvious, to see through masks, to hear the silence in between other people's words. It just happened. You looked once and couldn't unsee. And now you carry the burden of clarity in a world built on distraction. Have you noticed it? That unsettling stillness when you share a real thought? That awkward laugh someone lets out to cover their discomfort? Or worse, the joke they make trying to shrink you so they can feel tall again? You're not imagining it. You're mirroring them. And mirrors are terrifying. Because most people aren't living lives. They're reenacting scripts. Scripts handed to them by their culture, their family, their feed. Not examined, not chosen, just followed. And you, simply by existing with intention, disrupt the narrative. Your mind becomes a quiet alarm, ringing in rooms that prefer to stay asleep. This is what Psyphoria called the mirror effect, a psychological short circuit triggered by your presence. Not because you're offensive, but because you make people confront everything they've never dared to question. And so, they do what humans have always done when threatened. They exclude, they ridicule, they diminish. You may have heard it in their words. You're overthinking, they say. You're too deep, they laugh. But behind their mockery is a confession. You make them feel something they don't know how to hold. Schopenhauer knew this. He lived it. Laughed at by peers, ignored by institutions, misunderstood for most of his life until long after he was gone. And isn't that the final cruelty? That truth is only tolerated when it's too late to reject it. The thinker is shunned in life, celebrated in memory, a prophet in exile, a genius in silence. But you, right now, are not a statue in a museum. You're still here, still navigating rooms that shrink when you enter, still pretending not to notice the tension your thoughts create, still wondering if you should dim yourself to be accepted. Don't, because what feels like rejection is recognition in disguise. They see you, and what they see unnerves them. You live outside their frame of reference, and instead of expanding, they defend. It's not rational, it's instinct. A biological reflex older than civilization. The brain is tribal, and tribes fear the anomaly. In prehistoric times, being too different got you exiled. And in many ways, that code is still active. Today, it just wears better clothes. Isolation, awkwardness, social exile not by decree but by discomfort. And yet, the pattern persists. Socrates, Galileo, Tesla, Schopenhauer, all were too much too soon. All were punished for seeing what others weren't ready to see. Not because they were wrong, but because they couldn't lie. And now you stand in that lineage, whether you asked for it or not. The question isn't, why am I like this? The real question is, what do I do with this vision, this clarity, this curse-turned-gift? Stay with me, because in the next part, I'll show you how the world isn't just allergic to your mind. It's been carefully designed to keep you asleep. But your discomfort, your loneliness, it isn't a flaw, it's a clue, a signal that you're already breaking free. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't just a video, it's a confrontation. And if something in you is stirring, if some part of you feels strangely seen, it means one thing: you're already awake. But awareness doesn't make you free. Not yet. Because this world, this finely tuned machine of appearances, was not built to support minds like yours. It was built to subdue them, to sedate them, to make you doubt the very thing that makes you rare. That's why the more you awaken, the more the system begins to itch. It wants you compliant, not curious. Distracted, not deep. Addicted to noise. Afraid of silence. It wants you to click, not think. If this message speaks to the truth you've never heard out loud, then pause for a second and click like, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications. Not because we chase numbers, but because this is how we build a digital sanctuary for minds like yours. This is how we gather the exiled, the seekers, the unflinching observers who refuse to pretend. Now listen closely. Schopenhauer believed that most people live not by reason, but by what he called the blind will, an instinctual drive to survive, not to understand. And what threatens survival more than change, than uncertainty, than truth? So society has engineered a counterforce, conformity, the safe script, the shared lie. Think about it. The student who repeats the formula without reflection gets rewarded. The worker who obeys without question gets promoted. The citizen who never questions the narrative is celebrated, but the one who pauses, reflects, asks why, that person becomes the problem. Not because they're dangerous, but because they make others feel like everything is fragile. And they're right. It is. Most people don't want to live. They want to feel like they're living. So they curate a life. Dress it up. Share the highlights. Chase the next dopamine fix. And you come along and ruin it. Not by attacking, but by simply not playing along. That's all it takes. A moment of stillness in a rushing crowd. A question no one wants to answer. An insight that wasn't on the menu. That's all it takes to become the enemy of the norm. You see, intelligence isn't just measured by how much you know. It's measured by your capacity to see what others don't even think to question. And that's exactly why it's punished. Because society doesn't run on truth, it runs on consensus. It runs on agreement, on rhythm. And you disrupt the beat. You don't laugh at the joke everyone laughs at. You don't nod to beliefs just because they're popular. You don't pretend not to see what's behind the curtain. And so they call you arrogant, pretentious, cold, overthinker. But here's what they'll never admit. You scare them. Not because you're hostile, but because you're real. And realness feels like fire in a world of plastic. You are the mirror they didn't ask for, the depth they didn't expect, and they'll do anything to shut you out before you make them question everything. But don't take it personally. As Schopenhauer reminded us, the world is not a fair place for the intelligent. And yet, it needs them more than ever. So yes, you're complicated, but you're not broken, you're not defective, you're not lost. You're simply awake in a world addicted to dreams. And yes, that means loneliness, not the poetic kind, the real kind, the kind that shows up in conversations that fall flat, in smiles that don't reach the eyes, in parties where you feel more alone than when you're actually alone. But what if that loneliness isn't a curse? What if it's your compass? What if your sense of alienation is the clearest signal that you're on the right path? Because let's be honest, when was the last time superficiality fulfilled you? When was the last time small talk didn't make your soul shrink? When was the last time you felt truly met by someone, not just heard, but understood without you having to reduce yourself? That hunger, that ache, that invisible wound, it's not weakness, it's proof of your depth, and that depth is your edge. So the question now isn't how to be less. The question is how to live with more. How to navigate this chaos without betraying your essence. And for that, you'll need strategy, not suppression. You'll need to learn how to protect your fire without smothering it. And that's where we're headed next. Because in the third part, we're going deeper into the biology of rejection, the neuroscience of discomfort, and the ancient wisdom that teaches you not to fight the loneliness, but to wield it. Let's talk about that tension you feel in rooms where no one understands you. Not just emotionally, but biologically. This discomfort isn't just social rejection, it's survival instinct. It's the primitive mind doing exactly what it was designed to do, detect threat. You walk into a space with clarity in your eyes, with thoughts that don't bend, with questions that unsettle, and the group senses it. They don't consciously know why, but their nervous system does. The ancient tribal mind flinches, it smells danger. Not because you're loud, not because you're wrong, but because your presence disrupts cohesion. You're not reading from the same script. And to the group, that makes you unpredictable. Neuroscience shows us that when someone feels intellectually inferior, even for a moment, the amygdala lights up. That's the brain's fear center. You're not attacking them, you're just existing as a reminder of everything they haven't explored. And that makes you feel like a predator in their nervous system, so they laugh a little louder. Avoid eye contact, shift the conversation, anything to smooth over the invisible rupture. But the rupture already happened. You were the spark. Now imagine growing up in a world designed not to handle that spark. A world that trains children to memorize, not to question, to obey, not to think. Where schools punish curiosity when it doesn't fit the rubric. Where the loudest voices online are the shallowest ones. Where algorithms reward speed and spectacle, not insight. What kind of space does that leave for a mind like yours? A mind that pauses, a mind that reflects, a mind that demands coherence where others settle for comfort? Schopenhauer didn't sugarcoat it. He said clearly, solitude is the fate of all exceptional spirits. And he didn't mean loneliness as punishment, he meant isolation as necessity. Because the clarity you carry needs space, it needs quiet, it needs distance from the static. Not because you're better, but because your mind operates in a different rhythm. And forcing yourself into a world of noise is like dragging a violin through a rock concert. No one's going to hear it, and eventually you'll forget what it sounds like too. So here's the brutal truth. If you don't protect your mind, the world will devour it. Not with violence, but with distractions, with nonsense, with repetition. You'll stop questioning, you'll stop observing, you'll start mimicking. And little by little your clarity will erode, not because it wasn't strong, but because it wasn't guarded. That's why the next step isn't to shrink, it's to strategize. Not every thought deserves to be spoken aloud. Not every room is ready for what you see. This isn't censorship, it's wisdom. Schopenhauer warned us, never share the depth of your thoughts with those who live on the surface. Not because they're bad, but because they'll weaponize what they don't understand. Learn to modulate your presence. Speak when the soil is fertile. Retreat when it isn't. Select your spaces like you would select your thoughts, with care, with integrity, with precision. Because when your intelligence is treated like an inconvenience, it's not a call to dim yourself. It's a call to redirect your energy toward people, projects, and places that can receive it. This is how you stop surviving and start building. Build a sanctuary for your mind. That might be a journal, a podcast, a painting, a message to a stranger who thinks like you. Channel your intensity. Don't just reflect, create. Because intelligence, when it's trapped, implodes. But when it's expressed, it transforms. It becomes art, language, beauty, power. And here's the best part. You are not alone. The internet, despite all its chaos, has made it possible for scattered minds to find each other. People like you exist. Maybe few, maybe distant, but they exist. And they are waiting for conversations that don't end in small talk. For ideas that challenge instead of comfort. For connection that feels like recognition. That's what Psychopulse is meant to be. Not a channel, a mirror, a tribe, a signal to the ones who thought they were walking alone. But let's not lie to ourselves. This road remains steep. This clarity comes with a cost. And even with all these tools, the ache of being different never fully disappears. The question is, what will you do with that ache? Because in the next part, we go where most people never do. Into the final step of this transformation, turning your pain into power, your solitude into strength, your misfit mind into a legacy. Let me know when you're ready for part 4, and we'll finish this journey with the truth most people are too afraid to say out loud. You've carried it for years, haven't you? That ache, that quiet, persistent weight in your chest, the one that shows up in conversations where you fake a smile just to avoid being called intense, the one that lingers when you try to connect with people who only speak in headlines and emojis, the one that whispers late at night, why can't I just be like them? And here's the final truth. You weren't meant to be like them. You were meant to see what they couldn't. And for that, yes, there is a price, the price of awareness. But what if we've been thinking about that price the wrong way? What if it's not a burden, but a gateway? What if your pain is proof of your position? Because every generation has its misfits, its wanderers, its philosophers in disguise, and they all ask the same question. Why can't I be normal? But the answer has never changed, because normal wasn't meant for you. The same system that rewards compliance will always exile consciousness. And if you've ever silenced your depth just to be included, then you already know the cost of pretending is far greater than the cost of truth. Arthur Schopenhauer didn't just accept solitude, he transformed it, not into bitterness, but into brilliance. He wrote from silence, he sculpted thought from distance. He didn't seek the crowd, he refined the self. He believed that in a world that misunderstands the thinker must become their own refuge. And that's what you must do now, because this is no longer about being seen. This is about seeing yourself, clearly, unapologetically, powerfully. You've been taught that what makes you different is what makes you difficult. But they lied. What makes you different is what makes you necessary. The world doesn't need more performance. It needs perception. It needs eyes that pierce illusion. It needs minds that question the obvious. It needs souls that aren't afraid to stand in solitude until truth echoes back. You are not the problem. You are the pattern breaker. The one who refuses to nod in agreement when something doesn't sit right. The one who notices the silence behind the noise. The one who sees not just what is, but what could be. So stop asking for permission to be who you already are. Stop softening your edges to fit in rooms that were built to suffocate you. Start building your own. Let your solitude be sacred. Let your clarity be weaponized, not against others but for yourself, for your future, for the version of you that once tried to dim their light just to be liked. You owe that version redemption. Don't just think, live your thoughts. Don't just see, build from your vision. Turn your loneliness into language. Turn your rejection into resistance. Turn your overthinking into overcreating. Be so rooted in who you are that silence becomes your audience and truth becomes your rhythm. And remember, history does not remember the ones who followed the script. It remembers the ones who ripped it apart and wrote something new. Socrates died with poison in his veins, but his ideas still breathe. Tesla died alone, but his mind electrifies the modern world. Schopenhauer was dismissed in life, but revered in death. And you are cut from that same cloth. The world may not understand you, but one day, it may need you. You carry something too many have forgotten: the courage to question, the will to see, the refusal to pretend. And if you're still here, if this has resonated in the corners of your mind you thought no one else could see, then say it in the comments right now. I see. Because that's all it takes. One spark, one signal, one voice to find another. You're not alone. You've never been. You are just waiting for the right frequency. If this message shook something in you, then like this video, subscribe, and join the Psychopulse. This is where we speak the truths no one else dares to say. This is where the misfits come home. The next video is already waiting. Go there now. You'll understand why you've always felt too much, and why that's your superpower. Welcome to the mind that doesn't fit the mold. Welcome to Psychopulse.